Well, if I receive the microchip implant now, and many of you may have received it and not have known it through a vaccination, have I received the mark of the beast? And I simply want to bring out the fact that in the book of Revelation, chapter 13, we see that the false prophet, who's head of a coming one-world religious system, which causes the earth, the people in the earth, to worship the Antichrist as God, it's the false prophet who creates a one-world economic system, who distributes the mark of the beast, where you can't buy or sell without this mark. But in order to get the mark of the beast, which could very well be, and I think that it is, a microchip implant, you have to renounce your faith in Christ, and you have to pledge your allegiance or declare that the Antichrist is God. In other words, you have to renounce your faith in Christ and say that you're going to worship the Antichrist. That happens after the tribulation period begins, because I believe the Bible explains quite clearly that the Church of Jesus Christ, or the Bride of Christ, is removed from planet Earth in an event called the Rapture before the 7 years of tribulation and before the Antichrist is revealed. Therefore, the church is removed immediately before the Antichrist is revealed and the 7-year tribulation period begins. But what happens between now and then? What if they offer you a microchip now and the Antichrist has not been revealed and the church has not been raptured? Is it the mark of the beast? And many people say to me that, well, I would never accept a microchip implant, and I think you should do whatever you believe God has told you to do, and that you should not violate your conscience, but you could have a microchip in you already. Now, at this point, or at least today, if you had to receive, let's say for national security purposes, a microchip implant, and the Bilderberg Group in 2008, they're the elite power group of the world, the bankers, the international bankers, the heads of government, the heads of corporations, scientists, the world's ruling elite, who meet annually or more than once a year in what is called the Bilderberg Group. They announced in 2008 that they were going to make every citizen in the United States receive a microchip implant in the near future in the United States. So the United States would be the first country targeted for mass distribution and injection of a microchip implant. Now, at that point, you would not have to, at least now, renounce Christ and pledge your allegiance to the Antichrist. So, technically, that microchip implant wouldn't necessarily be, quote, the mark of the beast, because there would be no Antichrist to worship and no demand to renounce Christ and worship the Antichrist. It simply could be a technology that could be utilized later by the Antichrist, and people wrestle with this, and rightfully so, as to whether or not this is the mark of the beast. But let's talk for a moment about what this technology can do now and has been able to do for the past 30 years. Number one, 30 years ago, there was scientific research by respected scientists. I've read the documentation. I put it in my book, Are You Ready for the Microchip? These respected scientists said that you can control human moods by a microchip implant. And not only can you control human moods and know where people are, because the microchip implant has an RFID chip which is transmitting information, but that via satellite, and these are the words of the scientists, via satellite, you, kind of like GPS, you can target different individuals who have a microchip implant in them, and through electromagnetic waves generated by the microchip implant, you can change their moods. You can cause mental confusion. You can cause suicidal thoughts. You can cause depression. You can cause sexual arousal. You can cause the entire spectrum of human emotions. You can cause people to feel impotent in the sense of passive, willing to accept anything. You can dumb them down via satellite, communicating to a microchip implant put inside you, or the microchip implant could receive communication from some kind of computer center in the relative proximity or city of where you happen to be. And this is pretty heavy stuff. You can induce cancer, heart attacks, nightmares, hear voices, see hallucinations through the microchip implant. Now let's take it further than that. We know that in the Soviet Union, and I talk about this in my book, which you really need to read, because it's happening now, it's not happening in the future. In the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, if you disagreed with the state, you were clinically diagnosed by psychiatrists as being mentally crazy because you had political views that were different than the official communist political views. Therefore, if you disagreed with the communist agenda, you were clinically diagnosed as crazy and put into a mental hospital, or worse, receiving massive shock therapy. You were given massive amounts of drugs. You were given surgery on the brain. You were given a lobotomy. And they destroyed millions of people by saying they were mentally ill, and that gave them the excuse to use the most torturous and barbaric psychiatric medical technologies and surgeries available on these people whose only insanity was the fact that they disagreed with the communist system. That could happen very easily here in the United States of America. In fact, it's happening already now. And the microchip implant is one way of tracking that. In other words, if you disagree with the system, there are so many electronic profiles on you that you could be considered crazy and thus lose your rights, be confined, have your guns taken away from you, or any number of things, because by disagreeing with the system, you are then called clinically crazy, and psychiatry can be used as a medicinal, surgical, or technological weapon against you. I'm Paul McGuire, and we're talking about the microchip implant. We're doing this series, and I wrote the book, Are You Ready for the Microchip Implant?, for you to distribute to as many people